The Tall T wasn't just a Western. It was a stripped-down, existential nightmare, filmed on a shoestring budget that became more real and brutal than the West itself. Behind the stunning Sierra Nevada vistas lay a production so lean and mean it felt like a hostage situation on set. It pitted a Hollywood legend against villains so terrifying they blurred the line between acting and menace, all while the director fought to inject literary grit into a Formula B movie. What audiences saw as a simple tale of rescue was, in reality, a dark character study about honor, cowardice, and the savage code of the West. Today, we're riding into the badlands of this cinematic masterpiece. Here are 20 weird facts about the Tall T, and stick around for a bonus fact about a real-life act of heroism that eclipsed anything on screen. Hit that subscribe button and ride with us. Number 20. The film is considered the first true adult Western. The Tall T wasn't just a great film, it was a watershed moment that created a new subgenre. While other Westerns had adult themes, The Tall T is often cited by critics as the first film to fully embody the adult Western, a film aimed not at children, but at a mature audience capable of appreciating moral ambiguity and psychological complexity. It treated its audience like intelligent adults, presenting them with characters who were flawed, dialogue that was layered, and a story that refused to offer easy answers. The film wasn't just entertainment, it was art, and it single-handedly elevated the Western from a kid's genre to a medium for serious cinematic expression. Its legacy isn't just the film itself, but the entire universe of sophisticated, character-driven Westerns that followed in its wake. Number 19. The film ignored the source material's ending. The film's powerful conclusion wasn't just a direct adaptation, it was a significant and brilliant change from Elmore Leonard's original story. In Leonard's The Captives, the story ends with Frank Usher simply letting Brennan and Doretta go, a moment of cynical resignation. The film, however, builds to a violent, physical confrontation between Brennan and Usher. Burt Kennedy and Bud Boetticher made this change because they understood that cinema demanded a more active, physical climax. What makes this change so effective is that it fulfills the film's central thematic conflict. It's not enough for Brennan to be smart, he must also prove his moral code through action. The new ending wasn't a betrayal of the source, it was a cinematic enhancement, a perfect translation of literary theme into visual action. Number 18. The film was shot on the same location as countless other Westerns. The film's iconic isolated landscape wasn't a unique discovery, it was a Hollywood backlot disguised as wilderness. The majority of The Tall T was filmed in the Alabama hills near Lone Pine, California. This same location had been used for countless Westerns, including films starring John Wayne and Gene Autry. What makes Boetticher's use of the location so brilliant is that he found a way to make it feel fresh and claustrophobic. Through clever framing and a focus on the jagged rocks rather than the sweeping vistas, he turned a familiar setting into a trap, a pressure cooker where the character's psychological drama could play out. The location wasn't just a backdrop, it was a character, and Boetticher gave it a new, darker personality. Number 17. The film's runtime is a tightly wound 78 minutes. The film's story wasn't just told efficiently, it was told with a ruthless economy that is almost unheard of today. The Tall T runs for a mere 78 minutes. There is not a single wasted scene, not an ounce of narrative fat. Every line of dialogue, every glance, every pause serves the story. Bud Boetticher and Burt Kennedy constructed the script like a perfect, self-contained equation, where every element is precisely balanced and necessary. What makes this so impressive is that the film feels complete and emotionally resonant. The short runtime wasn't a limitation, it was a discipline, a masterclass in storytelling that proves a powerful tale doesn't need to be long to be epic. Number 16. Randolph Scott stunt, doubled for a younger actor. In a bizarre and little-known act of camaraderie, the 59-year-old star performed a dangerous stunt for a much younger co-star. During the scene where the stagecoach crashes, the actor playing the driver was having trouble with the fall. Randolph Scott, a skilled and athletic horseman, reportedly performed the stunt himself, diving from the buckboard to make the scene look more convincing. What makes this so remarkable is that it was completely unnecessary for a star of his stature. It was a pure gesture of professionalism and a desire to get the shot right, regardless of the personal risk. Scott's commitment wasn't just to his own role, it was to the film as a whole, a testament to the old-school work ethic that defined his generation. Number 15. The film's score avoids all Western tropes. The film's musical accompaniment wasn't just a background score, it was a deliberate act of subversion. Composer Heinz Rohmheld was instructed by Bud Boetticher to avoid all the typical Western music cliches: no soaring strings, no heroic cavalry charges, no harmonicas lamenting under the stars. Instead, Rohmheld provided a sparse, tense, almost noir-like score that emphasized the psychological suspense over the epic landscape. The music often consists of low, rumbling brass and unsettling piano chords. What made this so effective was that it reinforced the film's unique tone, constantly reminding the audience that they were watching a thriller, not a traditional Western. The score wasn't just music, it was a statement of intent. Number 14. Henry Silva improvised his most unsettling moments. The film's most feral and unpredictable character wasn't just scripted, he was partially improvised into existence. Henry Silva, playing the half-wit, violent Billy Jack, was encouraged by Bud Boetticher to ad-lib and find the character's unsettling physicality. Silva's strange tics, his nervous laughter, his animalistic way of moving, many of these were his own creations, developed on set to unnerve his co-stars and the audience. What made this so brilliant was that it made Billy Jack completely unpredictable. You never knew what he was going to do next, which injected a constant low-level dread into every scene he was in. Silva's performance wasn't just acting, it was a piece of controlled chaos, a live wire of pure menace. Number 13. The film's dialogue was largely unchanged from Leonard's story. The film's sharp, sparse dialogue wasn't just a screenwriter's invention, it was lifted almost directly from the page. Burt Kennedy had such immense respect for Elmore Leonard's writing that he made the unusual decision to retain much of the original story's dialogue verbatim. This was a risky move, as literary dialogue doesn't always work when spoken aloud. But Leonard's style, so natural, so economical, so full of subtext, was perfect for the screen. What made this so effective was that it gave the film an authenticity that most Hollywood Westerns lacked. The characters didn't speak like they were in a movie, they spoke like real people. The dialogue wasn't just exposition, it was the sound of truth. Number 12. Richard Boone's performance was based on a real-life con man. The chilling intelligence of Frank Usher wasn't just an invention, it was inspired by a real person. Richard Boone modeled his portrayal of the articulate, philosophical villain on a well-known con man he had studied or encountered. This gave Usher a terrifying realism. He wasn't a snarling, one-dimensional bad guy, but a clever, charismatic, and deeply evil man who could justify his actions with a twisted logic. He could discuss philosophy one moment and commit cold-blooded murder the next. What made this performance so terrifying was its plausibility. Boone's Usher wasn't a movie monster. He was the kind of charming, intelligent sociopath you might meet in the real world, which made him infinitely more frightening. Number 11. The film redefined the psychological Western. The Tall T wasn't just a great Western, it was a genre-altering work that helped create the psychological Western. Unlike the traditional Westerns focused on gunfights and clear-cut heroes and villains, this film was an intimate character study. The central conflict isn't just between the good guys and the bad guys, it's between Brennan's code of honor and Frank Usher's cynical amorality. The film spends more time on dialogue and internal conflict than on action. What made this so revolutionary was that it treated the Western as a vehicle for exploring complex moral and philosophical questions. The genre wasn't just a setting, it was a framework for a profound examination of human nature, paving the way for masterpieces like The Wild Bunch and Unforgiven. Number 10. The cinematography created a landscape of the soul. The film's stunning visuals weren't just pretty pictures, they were a reflection of the characters' inner states. Cinematographer Lucien Ballard, using the vibrant Technicolor process, didn't just capture the Alabama hills, he transformed them into a psychological landscape. The vast, empty spaces emphasized the character's isolation. The harsh, bright light created a sense of exposure and vulnerability. The jagged rocks mirrored the emotional treachery of the human drama. What made Ballard's work so masterful was that it was never just scenery. It was an active participant in the story. The camera wasn't just observing, it was probing, revealing the beauty and the terror of the West as a mirror for the beauty and terror within the characters themselves. Number 9. Bud Boetticher fought the studio to keep the dark ending. The film's bleak, morally ambiguous ending wasn't just the original plan, it was a battle that the director had to win. Columbia Pictures, the studio distributing the film, was uncomfortable with the ending, where Brennan, having saved the day, is left alone with the traumatized widow and the unspoken weight of what has transpired. The studio wanted a more conventional, uplifting conclusion. Boetticher, however, refused to compromise his vision. He argued that the film's power came from its realism and its refusal to offer easy answers. What made this fight so crucial was that it preserved the film's integrity. The ending wasn't just a narrative choice, it was a statement, a rejection of Hollywood sentimentality in favor of something more honest and enduring. Number 8. The film was a critical and commercial failure on release. The film's legendary status wasn't just immediate, it was a slow-burning triumph that took decades to achieve. Upon its release in 1957, The Tall T was treated as exactly what it was, a low-budget second feature western. It received decent but unremarkable reviews and performed modestly at the box office, quickly disappearing from theaters. It wasn't until years later, during the auteur-driven film revival of the 1960s and 70s, that critics and filmmakers like Peter Bogdanovich and Quentin Tarantino began to champion Boetticher's work. The film was rediscovered and reevaluated as a minimalist masterpiece. Its initial failure wasn't a judgment on its quality, it was a sign of its time, a brilliant work that was simply ahead of the critics who first saw it. Number 7. The title, The Tall T, is a subtle, symbolic detail. The film's enigmatic title wasn't just a catchy phrase, it was a key to understanding the protagonist's soul. The Tall T refers to the T-Bar brand on the cattle that Pat Brennan has just sold before the film begins. He is a man who has just lost his herd, his land, and his identity as a rancher, all symbolized by the Tall T brand. Throughout the film, he is a man adrift, stripped of the trappings of his life, forced to rely only on his innate character and code. What makes this so poignant is that the film's title is a constant, quiet reminder of what Brennan has lost and what he is fighting to reclaim, not just his life, but his very sense of self. The title wasn't just a name, it was the ghost that haunts the entire story. Number 6. Maureen O'Sullivan came out of retirement for the role. The film's female lead wasn't just another job, it was a return to the screen for a legendary star. Maureen O'Sullivan, famous worldwide for playing Jane in the Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films, had largely retired from acting to focus on her family. She was coaxed back to work by Bud Boetticher, who saw in her the perfect blend of fragility and inner strength needed for the character of Doretta Mims. What made her casting so brilliant was the way she subverted audience expectations. She begins as a seemingly spoiled, bored wife, but reveals a core of steel and resilience that is crucial to the film's climax. O'Sullivan's performance wasn't just a comeback. It was a masterclass in understated power, a reminder that true strength doesn't need to shout. Number 5. The final fight was choreographed for brutal realism. The climactic showdown wasn't a graceful, dance-like duel. It was a clumsy, desperate, and ugly fight for survival. Director Bud Boetticher insisted that the final brawl between Randolph Scott's Pat Brennan and Richard Boone's Frank Usher be completely devoid of Hollywood glamour. There are no fancy karate chops or clean throws. Instead, the two men grapple, stumble, gasp for air, and use whatever they can find, rocks, their fists, their sheer body weight to inflict damage. What made this so powerful was its authenticity. It looked like two tired, angry men actually trying to kill each other. The fight wasn't just a set piece, it was the physical manifestation of the film's themes, a raw, violent conclusion that honored the film's gritty, unsentimental tone. Number 4. Randolph Scott was so moved by the script, he took a pay cut. The film's star wasn't just a hired gun, he was a true believer. Randolph Scott, a veteran Western star, was so impressed by the quality of Burt Kennedy's script, adapted from Elmore Leonard, that he agreed to a reduced salary to ensure the film could be made on its tight budget. Scott, who had seen countless generic Western scripts, recognized the intelligence and psychological depth in Kennedy's work. He knew this was something special. What made this so significant was that it was a testament to Scott's artistic integrity. At a stage in his career when he could have phoned it in, he was willing to put his money where his mouth was for a project he believed in. His commitment wasn't just professional, it was personal, and it provided the foundation for the film's artistic success. Number 3. The film was shot in just 12 days for under $500,000. The production wasn't just efficient, it was a cinematic commando raid. The Tall T was one of 7 films made under the Ranown partnership between Randolph Scott and producer Harry Joe Brown, all of them shot on ridiculously tight schedules and budgets. This film was lensed in a mere 12 days for a budget estimated around $470,000. This breakneck pace forced Boetticher to be incredibly resourceful, relying on masterful staging, natural light, and the raw talent of his actors rather than expensive sets or effects. What made this so remarkable is that the film never feels cheap or rushed. The constraints weren't a limitation, they were a creative weapon, stripping away all the fat and leaving only the essential, lean muscle of the story. The film wasn't just made, it was forged in the crucible of B-movie economics. Number 2. The villains, Richard Boone and Henry Silva, were genuinely intimidating. The film's antagonists weren't just acting, they were channeling a level of menace that made the cast and crew deeply uncomfortable. Richard Boone, who played the cunning, sadistic Frank Usher, was known for his intense method acting and volatile personality. He would often stay in character between takes, his quiet, watchful presence, creating a palpable tension on set. His counterpart, Henry Silva, as the psychotic Billy Jack, had a background in playing disturbed characters and brought a feral, unpredictable energy that was genuinely frightening. What made this pairing so effective was that Boone's cold, intellectual cruelty was the perfect counterpoint to Silva's hot-headed impulsiveness. The villains weren't just characters, they were a force of nature. And the fear you see in Maureen O'Sullivan's eyes wasn't just acting, it was a real reaction to being trapped in a scene with two actors who had become their roles. Number 1. The film is based on an Elmore Leonard story called The Captives. The film's literary pedigree wasn't just highbrow, it was a hard-boiled crime writer's first foray into the West. The Tall Tea was adapted from a short story by Elmore Leonard, then known primarily for his gritty crime fiction. The story, titled The Captives, was a lean, dialogue-driven piece that perfectly suited Leonard's signature style of terse, realistic characters simmering with tension. What made this adaptation so significant was that screenwriter Burt Kennedy and director Bud Boetticher didn't just adapt the story. They internalized its rhythm, preserving Leonard's ear for the way real people talk, especially under pressure. The source material wasn't just a blueprint, it was the film's DNA, a crime writer's sensibility transplanted into the wide-open spaces of the West, creating a hybrid that felt both classic and startlingly modern. Bonus fact, Randolph Scott saved a man's life during filming. The most heroic act on the set of The Tall Tea wasn't performed by a character, it was performed by the film's star. During a break in filming, a local rancher who was working as a technical advisor or extra suffered a severe heart attack and collapsed. As panicked crew members stood by, Randolph Scott, drawing on his life experience and calm demeanor, immediately took charge. He administered what was then basic first aid, kept the man's airway clear, and comforted him until a doctor could be summoned. The man survived, and his family later credited Scott's quick thinking and level-headed intervention with saving his life. What makes this story so powerful is that it was a real-life display of the quiet competence and stoic heroism that Scott projected on screen. The star wasn't just playing a hero. On that day, in the shadow of the Alabama hills, he was one. The Tall Tea wasn't just a Western, it was a perfect film. A masterpiece of minimalism made with B-movie resources and a movie talent. It proved that you don't need a big budget or a long runtime to tell a powerful story. All you need is a great script, a brilliant director, and actors who understand the power of subtlety. It is a film that has been copied but never surpassed. A lean, mean, and profoundly moving work that continues to cast a very long shadow over the genre. It is in the end a perfect example of cinematic economy, where every single element serves a purpose, and not a single second is wasted. Like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes revelations that change how you see your favorite movies forever. In the words of Pat Brennan, I'll be seeing you, Frank, and we'll be seeing you in the next video.